Write down this problem. A car goes on a horizontal circular road of radius r. The speed increasing at the rate of small a. See the board. A is equal to dv by dt. Mu is the coefficient of friction. Find the speed at which the car will skid. When will a body skid? When there is no external force which can provide the required centripetal force. If there is an external force which is providing the required centripetal force, the body will be going about in a circular track.
Yes, sir.
Now here, it is not just a question of centripetal force. This will be Fc and this will be Ft. You have both tangential and centripetal forces.
Yes, sir.
So here, frictional force mu n should provide both the force, both the accelerations, ar square plus at square. Frictional force should provide not just the centripetal acceleration but also tangential acceleration. And mu mg is the frictional force. This will be equal to m into root over of v by r whole square plus at was a square. At tangential acceleration is dv by dt. Rated with the speed is increasing. You are asking me to calculate the value of v from here. Mu square g square is equal to v to the power 4 by r square plus a square. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
You are asking me to find out this v, the velocity at which the body will start skidding. If by chance the body was moving with uniform speed and its speed was not increasing, then whole of friction will provide only m into ar root over of ar square, because at will become 0. If the body is going with uniform speed, then my problem was something that I have already dealt with. This is the maximum speed with which it will take a turn, mv square by r. Now what is happening here? Whole of the required frictional force is providing only centripetal acceleration, right? Hence you were told v is root over of mu rg. This is the maximum velocity with which you can take a turn without skidding. But here it is not going with uniform speed. Its speed is increasing. Who will provide that particular speed? That speed will be provided by the frictional force. So friction not just provides the required centripetal force, but also the tangential force. A long horizontal rod has a bead which can slide along its length. Bead, B-E-A-D. Bead which can slide along its length and is initially placed at a distance of L, capital L, from a fixed end, capital A of the rod. This is the bead. The rod is set into angular motion about A with constant acceleration alpha. Full stop. If mu is the coefficient of friction between the rod and the bead, find the time after which the bead starts slipping. In bracket, neglect gravity. If I have a view of this from the top, the circular motion will be like this. This is the rod, this is the bead. Isn't it? This is the view from the top.
Yes, sir.
If I view this from the top, and here you have the angular velocity. He says it starts from rest and it has a uniform angular acceleration of alpha. It starts from rest and has a uniform angular acceleration of alpha. If it is a uniform angular acceleration of alpha from here, watch out for this. Who provides the required velocity for this? The normal force. Here the speed of this particular bead is increasing. What force is pulling it? Now have a look at it. I'll tell you the ring is like this. This is the view that you are seeing. My finger is the ring. The marker is the rod. Now this is rotating this way. Who is pulling my finger?
A normal force.
The normal force between the marker and my finger. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
You are able to visualize that? So here normal force is not gravity. That too is asking you to neglect gravity. Even if it existed, the ring would have come down this way because of gravity. Now because there is no gravity, the ring will be like this. Are you able to see the difference?
Yes, sir.
So there is no gravity. So normal force is pulling it in the horizontal direction. So this will be going about this way. The normal force is pulling it. Who is increasing the linear speed for that particular mass? The normal force. Which force is providing the centripetal force? The frictional force of mu n is preventing the body from slipping outwards. So normal force will provide the required tangential acceleration here. Frictional force will provide the required centripetal force here. This is m omega square L. I didn't take it in terms of V, I took it in terms of omega because he gave me alpha. Right? And what is tangential acceleration equal to? This will be L alpha. What is tangential acceleration equal to? R alpha, L alpha or d by dt of R omega. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Now solve the problem, make it fast. And you are asked for time, remember that. You are asked for time. I gave you the hint for the problem. Quick, make it fast. Now when omega this value is reached, the body will start slipping. Why? You availed whole of friction to provide the required centripetal force. If omega further increases, I do not have an available force which can provide the required centripetal force. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
If omega further increases, I do not have an available force which provides the required centripetal force. Hence, this is the maximum omega. When will I reach that omega? You tell me, my job is done. Whenever acceleration is constant, I can use these equations. V is equal to U plus AT. V square is equal to U square plus 2AS. S is equal to UT plus half AT square. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Their replica in circular motion will be omega is equal to omega naught plus alpha t. Omega square is equal to omega naught square plus 2 alpha theta. Theta is equal to omega naught t plus half alpha t square. I replaced velocity with angular velocity, linear acceleration with angular acceleration, linear displacement with angular displacement. Time will be the same. Now that I know that whole of friction provides the required centripetal force, n value provides the required tangential force, mu into m into at will be equal to m omega square L. Mu into what is tangential acceleration? L alpha is omega square L. Root over of mu alpha is omega. Yes or no? Now when this angular velocity is reached, beyond this, the body cannot go in circular track because the maximum value of friction is already available.
Yeah.
And once I have used up whole of friction, I have no other option, the body will slide. Now how much time will I take to reach this particular angular velocity? Use this formula. Initial angular velocity is 0. Initial angular velocity is 0. When can I use this formula? Only if the body has uniform angular acceleration. When alpha is constant, I can use that formula. Even in linear dynamics, linear kinematics, if acceleration was constant, I use that formula. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Quick. Time after which this omega is reached. Use the first formula here. Pardon?
Root nu by alpha.
Right. This is a solid hemisphere kept on the ground. What is the minimum velocity I should give to the mass on the top? It is a smooth hemisphere and it is fixed. Hemisphere is fixed. What is the minimum velocity I give to the mass on the uppermost point so that it doesn't slip? Minimum velocity I give to the mass on the uppermost point so that it doesn't slip on the hemisphere. It should not slip on the hemisphere. It should leave contact immediately, instantaneously. It should not slide on the hemisphere. It should leave contact instantaneously. What is the minimum velocity I should give to small m? Write down. What is the minimum velocity to be given to small m so that it doesn't slip on the hemisphere? The velocity I give will be this way. See the free body diagram of small m. This will be mg and n. Now mg minus n will be equal to mu square by r. If this was slipping, the velocity I gave will give me this equation. Why? mg minus n will be equal to mu square by r. mg
Yes,
is
sir.
towards the center, normal force is away. Now you are asking me what should I give as a velocity u so that the normal force becomes 0. U will be equal to root over of gr. This is the minimum velocity I give so that it doesn't slip on the surface. Immediately it will leave contact with the surface and move this way.
Yes, sir.
Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
If this is a metal ring rotating with an angular velocity omega, this is something which will follow you till the end of chapter magnetics, what we are using right now. Remember this result. Probably the maximum used or exploited question is this. A metal ring placed on a smooth surface is made to rotate with an angular velocity omega. Metal ring placed on a smooth surface is made to rotate with an angular velocity omega. You are asking me the tension in this particular ring. Tension developed in the ring. Now why should ever tension developed in the ring? If there is no mechanical strength for the body when you are rotating, the body would expand radially outwards. There should be something to provide strength so that the body, there should be an external force which provides the required centripetal force.
Yes,
If there is no external force to provide the required centripetal force, have a look at this. This is a water bottle. If I am rotating it in this particular direction, right, the water inside is going about in a circular track. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Now when it is going in circular track, this element of water, who is providing the centripetal force? The normal force here. This surface normal force provides the required centripetal force. How do you justify that? You pin a hole here, the point where there is a hole, there will be no normal force? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Now when you pin a hole, the point where I pinned a hole, there will be no normal force. Now when you rotate this, the water at that particular hole will go spilling out. Why is it spilling out and why is the water not? Now water, why is it not going in a circular track? There is nothing to provide the required centripetal force.
Yes, sir.
So there should be something to provide the required centripetal force for a body to go about in a circular track. There should be an external force. If there is no external force, the mechanical strength of the body should provide the required centripetal force. At least that should do the required job. Give me one example. Did you ever see how a Rumali roti is made? You rotate it this way. The dough which is made a bit soft. They make it into a small size chapati and they spin it this way. When it is spinning, it keeps expanding. Did you watch that? Right. Now when you are spinning it, the mechanical strength should provide the... Now I take a steel plate and I spin it, it doesn't expand.
Yes,
Why doesn't a steel plate expand? There is sufficient mechanical strength to withstand the required force. That means the required force to go about in a circular track for every element of the steel plate is provided by the elastic strength of the material.
Yes, sir.
Hence it is going in a circular track. Now this Rumali roti is made out of dough which is a bit wet, bit soft. Now when this is a bit soft, when you are spinning it, it is rotating, sufficient mechanical strength don't exist. So it will be going out of the circular track. Now in that process of going out of the circular track, it expands, it becomes very thin. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Now same is the job even with this. Who is providing the required centripetal force for this ring to rotate? The mechanical strength developed in that particular material, the tension. That mechanical strength will be called the tension developed. So how do you justify that? Take a very small element. I will amplify the diagram of the small element. It will be like this. If the small element subtends an angle of d theta here, this angle will be d theta by 2. Yes or no?
Yes.
And tension always acts in this direction. Now the horizontal component of tension will cancel out. If this is d theta by 2, this is d theta by 2. And hence this will be d theta by 2. T cos d theta by 2 will cancel out with T cos d theta by 2. But this will be T sin d theta by 2. And this will be T sin d theta by 2. So here this T sin d theta by 2 and T sin d theta by 2 components, 2T sin d theta by 2 will provide the required centripetal force, omega square r. Centripetal force to what? To the small element.
Yes, sir.
Now, if that mechanical strength or tension could not be developed by this material, this small element would tend to go out. In that attempt, this radius would expand.
Yes,
Hence,
sir.
because d theta is very, very small, I will write d theta by 2 here. This is dm, mass per unit length, into length of the small element is r d theta. Mass per unit length into length of the small element is r d theta. This is omega square r. M omega square or m v square by r. Did I miss something here? 2t sin d theta by 2. 2t d theta 2t. Mass per unit length into length of the small element is r d theta. M omega square r square. Right. M omega square r square by L. I forgot L. Mass per unit length into omega square r square. You want to write it in terms of V, we are okay with it. If not, leave it as m omega square r square by L. Fine.
Yes.
So who provides the required centripetal force for this ring? The tension provides the required centripetal force for that ring. You resolve the component of tensions towards the center. Sum of both together, 2t sin d theta by 2 will provide the required centripetal force, m omega square r. And mass of the small element is mass per unit length into length of the small element. Length of the small element is r d theta, sector formula. 2 and 2 got cancelled out, d theta gets cancelled out, t is equal to m omega square r square by L.
Yes, sir.
We will see this problem n number of situations till we complete the chapter magnetics. You will have to remember this result. On a horizontal surface, two blocks 2 kg and 1 kg are connected by two strings. You are viewing this from the top. You are viewing this from the top on the table. From the top you are viewing this. This is rotating with an angular velocity of 4 radians per second. Find the tension. Here I will take T1. Here I will take T2. Find the tension in both the strings.
16.
The first equation is T1 minus T2 will be equal to
16.
2 into 4 square into 1. Second equation is T2 is equal to m omega square into r. In the first equation, T1 minus T2 provides the required centripetal force. For the second, T2 provides the required centripetal force. I will draw this on the board, but it will not be so very perfect a diagram. I am drawing the top view. Observe that this point is the center of that rod. The point which I am showing is the center of that rod.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I am showing the top view. I am showing the top view. So the top view will be, that is the L-shaped structure with the bead here. And the diagram given for you is this. The sleeve, and this is actually a spring. There is a spring given here, which you cannot see in the, this was the curved path shown. This is the diagram given in Erdo. Is it okay with all?
Yes, sir.
The top view is this. The top view is this. And the circular path will be like this. This will be the radius of the circular path for this. This in Iridov's language is a sleeve. Sleeve is a nut or a bolt fixed there. But then this sleeve is kept there, connected by a spring to this particular point. Connected by a spring to this particular point. Are you able to visualize this?
Yes, sir.
A device consists of a smooth L-shaped rod. Which shaped rod? L-shaped. This is the L-shaped rod. This is what he is showing. Located in a horizontal plane with a sleeve A, capital A, of mass M attached by a weightless spring to a point B. The spring is of negligible mass. M is the mass of the sleeve. Mass of sleeve. the spring stiffness is equal to K. Spring stiffness is equal to K. The spring stiffness is equal to K. The whole system rotates with a constant angular velocity omega about an axis passing through the point O. About an axis passing through the point O. Find the elongation in the spring. He is asking you to find the elongation in the spring. The one main catch in this particular problem is I should know the direction, I should know the radius here and the direction of the forces. If you watch carefully, the normal force will come in this direction and kx. Now I redraw this particular diagram here without other parameters. It comes this way. So can I say kx is in this particular direction and normal force is in this particular direction? Say something.
Yes, sir.
Kx is in this particular direction and n is in this particular direction. As a result of which n and kx, when I resolve them along the radial direction, now L-shaped structure, he gave this and this. Now if I know this particular value of theta, it will be n sin theta and kx cos theta. N sin theta plus kx cos theta will provide m omega square into small r. How do you want me to get this radius? You know the length L.
Yes, sir.
Right? You know the length L. So obviously using Pythagoras theorem you will get this radius. This is my first equation. What will be your second equation? You are telling me that it goes with uniform angular velocity. That means forces along the tangential direction should be equal and opposite. Now forces along these two directions, you took this to be theta. So this will be kx sin theta and this will be, if this is theta, you have taken this to be 90 minus theta, you said this was n sin theta. That means this will be n cos theta. So n cos theta should be equal to kx sin theta. So these two components, component of normal force and component of kx, both put together will provide the required centripetal force. And both the forces along the tangential direction should be equal and opposite. Only if they are equal and opposite, you will have a uniform angular velocity for that particular sleeve. Is the logic clear to all?
Yes, sir.
You will get the answer in terms of that length of the L-shaped structure here, because you have taken this value as r. You will have to substitute for r is not given. Take that length as L. Till now all the problems that you have done, you have used only centripetal force. We heard of one more force called centrifugal force.
Yes. Yes.
Centrifugal is the pseudo force acting on the body. If ever you are told that this is a turntable rotating with an angular velocity omega, and I tell you friction provides the required centripetal force, that means somebody standing on the ground will see this body going about in a circular track. So this will be mu n will be m omega square x. Mu n is m omega square x. Right? Mu n provides the required centripetal force, m omega square x. But at the same time, you have an observer standing on this particular frame, say at the same distance of x. You have an observer standing on this particular frame at the same distance of x. Fine. Now according to him, he is also going about in a circular track. So he is being subjected to a force of what? Centripetal force of m omega square x. So what is his acceleration? Omega square into x. Say temporarily for my convenience, let me consider the observer to be standing here itself. So he will feel that this particular block is at rest.
Yes, sir.
If he will feel that this particular block is at rest, if he feels that this block is at rest, why is it at rest? Because according to him there should be a pseudo force of m omega square x. This will be pseudo force. Why? Mass of the body into acceleration of the frame. What is the acceleration of his particular frame? It will be omega square x towards the center. So pseudo force will be outwards.
Outside.
So that pseudo force will be outwards. Is that making sense to all?
Yes, sir.
If ever they are asking you to solve a problem with respect to this particular frame, then with respect to that particular frame, put a pseudo force of m omega square x. Pseudo force is a non-existing force. Mass of the body into acceleration of the frame. Let the acceleration of the frame be. Define the acceleration of the frame. Now this man is a frame who feels that he is being subjected to a centripetal force of omega square x. So an equal acceleration with the mass of the block, the product will be the pseudo force. Now you ask this man what are the forces acting on it, he will tell you friction is equal to m omega square x. Your equation will be equally right. Somebody on the ground
Yes,
will
sir.
report that this particular force is making the body go about in a circular track. Somebody on the accelerated frame will tell you that which accelerated frame, this accelerated frame will tell you that the block is at rest. Why? Friction is equal to m omega square x. Friction and m omega square x are in opposite direction. That is the pseudo force. This force
Yes,
in
sir.
circular motion is refers to as centrifugal force. On a turntable, the view is from the top. There is a groove cut this way, and a body is released from here. The radius is r. The body is released from this length L. Right? This is the turntable view from the top. This is a groove, and this is of mass small m. This is a groove, and this is of mass small m. The turntable is rotating with an angular velocity of omega, uniform angular velocity of omega, and the groove is smooth. And the groove is smooth. This particular distance is r minus l.
Yes.
And the groove is smooth. This particular distance is r minus l. Right? Tell me, how much time does it take for this small mass to reach this particular point? Reach the end of the table. How much time? If the table is rotating with a uniform angular velocity and table is rotating with a uniform angular velocity and this is a smooth groove, that means there is nothing to provide the centripetal force. There is no possibility in which the bead can be kept there. It will slide out. It will slide out. So how much time does it take for the small body to reach the other end? In the sense, the rim of the table, turntable.
2 into r minus l upon omega square.
How did you get that?
Sir,
S is equal to ut plus half at square.
Find out the velocity with which it will leave the groove. All these are byproducts of the same concept. If the observer is on the table, let us say assume that this particular mass has come by a distance of x. Now what is the pseudo force on it? M omega square x is the pseudo force in the outward direction. So everybody on the table also will see this mass coming from a distance of L to R. They will see the mass going from L to R, yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So what is the force on it acting? Acceleration is omega square x. Acceleration is dv by dt. This will be omega square x. This will be dv by dx into dx by dt. This will be omega square x. Now dx by dt is v dv is equal to omega square x dx. Omega is a constant. X is 0. X is equal to L. The velocity was 0. You released it from that position. X is equal to R. You are asking me for the velocity. I will get the velocity of that particular mass. But you got this velocity with respect to what? With respect to the turntable. What makes you say you got it with respect to the turntable? Because you have taken the pseudo force. Centrifugal force.
Yes, sir.
Centrifugal force means you are solving the problem with respect to the turntable. But I am okay
Yes,
with
sir.
it. For me this velocity is in the outward direction with respect to the table, and at that instant I know the velocity of the table in this direction is r omega. If by chance he is insisting on find out the velocity with respect to the ground, you know the velocity of the mass with respect to the table I will get from here. Plus velocity of the table's point, that point of the table with respect to ground. Will I get the velocity of the mass with respect to ground?
Yes, sir.
I repeat the logic here. The groove is like this. The table is rotating in this direction. If this has a velocity of v, which I calculate from here, this will have a velocity of r omega. Velocity of the mass with respect to the table plus velocity of the table with respect to ground. Velocity of the table means linear velocity of different parts of the table is different. Take the linear velocity of that particular point. Velocity of the mass with respect to that point plus velocity of that point with respect to the ground. You will get the velocity of mass with respect to ground. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Once I know the velocity, calculation of time, again the procedure will be the same. And don't use v equal to u plus at or v square is equal to u square plus 2as because the accelerations are not constant.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
So how would we solve this same problem with respect to the ground?
With respect to the ground will be difficult for you. That's why the centrifugal force have been introduced. There is no force to provide the required centripetal force. Hence it is going out with how much of an acceleration? M omega square x. Right, with respect to the ground will be difficult. Hence we did it with respect to the table. Now this is a desk, small m, mass at a distance of x. It is rotating with a constant angular velocity omega. Everybody on the ground will see. Suppose there is no friction. No friction. How will you describe the motion of small m? There is no friction between the turntable and small m. How will you describe the motion of small m?
It will slowly slide. It will slowly slide.
The block small m will remain at the same point and the turntable will be slipping from underneath.
Yes, sir.
The block small m will remain at the same point and the turntable will be slipping from underneath.
Yes, sir.
So it will remain at rest with respect to what? With respect to ground.
Ground.
With respect to somebody on the turntable, this will be moving in the opposite direction in a circular track.
Yes, sir.
So that it will come and strike that particular man. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Now exactly diametrically opposite to this particular block, there is a man standing. Now say there is sufficient friction for both of them to prevent slipping. Both of them are not slipping. Both of them are going about in a circular track. Right? Both of them are going about in a circular track and the radius of both of them are the same. The radii of both of them are the same. That man is diametrically on the opposite side.
Yes,
The man is on diametrically the opposite side. Take his mass to be capital M and friction is sufficient to provide centripetal force for both of them. Friction is sufficient to provide the centripetal force for both of them.
Yes, sir.
Everybody on the ground will see both of them going about in a circular track. They will tell you friction here provides the required centripetal force, friction here provides the required centripetal force. We are happy with it. How will this man describe the motion of small m?
At rest with respect to the man.
Now what are the forces according to him which are doing the job?
Friction force and centrifugal force.
Friction and centrifugal force. So according to this man, friction is in this direction and centrifugal force is in this direction. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Centrifugal force, I will put it as m omega square x. Think again. According to this man, is that the centrifugal force? Mass of this block into acceleration of this man. Mass of this block into acceleration of this man. I have only one trouble in what you have reported. My trouble is like this. This man's acceleration is towards the center in this direction. Right? So pseudo force means in this it should be in the opposite direction to the acceleration of the frame. So according to me this should be the pseudo force m omega square x. It should be inverse because it will be opposite to the direction of frame of reference. Mass of this block into acceleration of this frame. Are you able to see that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now describe how will this man see that block at rest.
Sir, but for man himself, the acceleration will not be towards the center, it will be away from center.
Who said that? Centripetal force. There should be some force providing the required acceleration towards the center. The acceleration of the man with respect to ground is omega square x towards the center.
Sir, that will be from ground.
centripetal force.
Centripetal force, right? That centripetal force is towards the center. So his centripetal acceleration is towards the center. That means in this direction. So if the frame has an acceleration in this direction, the pseudo force will be opposite to the direction of the frame.
Sir, the centripetal acceleration comes into the scene in the ground frame, but we are doing it with respect to the turntable itself. So
Just
how
a
can the
minute. Who
centripetal
is the
acceleration?
frame? The man is the frame.
Yes,
Who
sir.
is the frame here? The observer, the man, that point.
Yes, sir.
So his acceleration is omega square x towards the positive x-axis.
Yes.
And hence the pseudo force is in the opposite direction. Justify my statement. I'll give you one hint. The direction of pseudo force is right. Now describe your motion. Now if somebody tells me that small m is at rest with respect to capital M, obviously I'll ask you, how are you keeping it rest when two forces are acting in the same direction? Isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Did you understand my question in all forms?
Yes, sir.
I'll give you time. Will you think on it and tell me in the next class?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Take down the question. Draw the diagram. Describe the motion of small m as seen by capital M. Describe the motion of small m as seen by capital M. Did we calculate the radius of the topmost point of a projectile motion?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Radius
Dealt
of
with this, right?
Yes, sir.
Mg provides the required centripetal force. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Did we deal with this a vehicle going about in this particular track? We have dealt with this. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Now listen to this. To do the last part of circular motion, we need to introduce work energy theorem. This is motion in a vertical circle. Till now, almost if you observe carefully, all the circular motions that we dealt with are in the horizontal plane. We were avoiding gravity in some of the situations. We even said for a thin rod, when a ring is going this way, neglect gravity. So we were keeping one concept of it aside. We need to deal with that in detail, but for which we will have to introduce this work energy theorem. We introduce work energy theorem, we'll come back, finish circular motion and go back to work energy theorem. That will be the oscillation here. Is it okay with all?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know one part of work energy theorem which you people have been using as kinetic energy and potential energy. You conserve this in some forms, you conserve this sometimes, but you actually should know when we can conserve that and when not. Right? But then,
Yes, sir.
when it comes to work energy theorem, first of all, let us define this quantity called work. This will be force dot displacement. Let us define this quantity called work. This will be force dot displacement. Very particularly, this displacement is the displacement of the point of application of force. Displacement S is the displacement of the point of application of the force. Are you trying to tell me that if the point is not moving, there is no work done? Yes, there is no work done. Can you give an example? One very prominent example. When you are walking, what is the force which you are using to walk? Friction. Which friction? Static or kinetic? Static. Because my leg is not slipping. My leg is lifting from here and being placed in front. So what we are using is static friction. So if your leg is not slipping, there is no work done against friction because the point of application of the force is zero displacement. So you are telling me that friction is compulsory for you to walk, but at the same time, work done by friction is zero. Yes. I will have so many instances where presence of that force is very essential for the job to be done. But at the same time, work done by that force will be zero. But at the same time, work done by that particular force will be zero. Is that making sense?
Yes, sir.
Because the displacement of the point of contact is zero. Then when you're walking, what is doing the work? Your internal energy is doing work. That's why walking is a good exercise. If friction was doing work, why will that be an exercise for you? You are climbing steps. You are placing your leg on one step, pressing it and going up. When you are going up, the normal force between the step and your feet does no work. But that is the root cause which is lifting you up. Even if that is the root cause which is lifting you up, work done when you are climbing up a step is because of an internal force, not because of the normal force. Because the displacement of that particular point is 0. Displacement should be the displacement of the point of application of the force. Second, work done is a scalar quantity because it is the dot product of two forces. Work done is a scalar quantity because it is the dot product of two forces. I mean dot product of two vectors.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
So if we run instead of walking with constant acceleration, then also work done will be 0.
Naturally. Work done by what? Work done by friction. Right? Work done by friction will be 0. Work done by you will increase. If you are increasing your kinetic energy, work done by you, internal forces will be doing greater work. Now we define two types of forces in this chapter. One is conservative, the other is non-conservative. Conservative force, what is the definition? Work done is independent of path followed. The conservative force, the work done should be independent of the path followed. In the sense, suppose I take this pen from here till here, I take it straight from here till here, or I make it turn this way and bring it here, or I change it from here till here. Either way, the work done should be the same. It depends only on the initial and final positions. Only then I call it a conservative field. Yes, last bench.
So I didn't understand how work done by friction will be 0.
Displacement at that particular point is 0. Friction is acting between your leg and the ground. So work done is force dot displacement. So displacement is 0. Displacement should be the displacement of the point of application of the force. Your leg is not slipping there. Your leg you are lifting and moving it ahead. When you are walking, you are lifting your leg and moving it ahead. So work done by friction. When will there be work done by friction? Only if the body is sliding. Only if there is displacement at the point of contact. Yes or no? Now, what do you define as a conservative field or a conservative force? Work done is independent of the path followed. It should depend only on the initial and final positions. It should depend only on initial and final positions. Then what is a non-conservative field? By the way, examples of conservative field: gravitation, spring force, electrostatic force. Write down all the three examples. Examples of conservative field: gravitation, spring force, and a non-conservative force. Gravitation, spring force, and electrostatic force. What did I say? Gravitation, spring force, and non-conservative.
Yeah, sir, spring force is conservative.
Listen, gravitation, spring force, and electrostatic force. All three are conservative forces. Spring force will depend only on the initial and final. Half k x1 square and half k x2 square. I'll derive that. So conservative forces example: gravitation, spring force, and electrostatic force.
Yes, sir.
Non-conservative force, write down the statement: work done is dependent on the path followed. Example: friction.
In static friction, work done is always 0.
Now this is a luring trap for you. Now the boy's doubt is static friction means the body should not slide. So always work done by static friction is 0. The statement is wrong. The reason being work is frame dependent. Note, write down. Work is frame dependent. Now suppose I am pulling this lower block with a force of F and small m is not sliding on capital M. The force I applied, you know the conditions for sliding. When will small m slide on capital M? If A maximum is lesser than A common, then alone it will slide. If A maximum is greater than A common, friction would decrease its value so that both of them are moving together. Do you remember this? Okay, listen. So you remember the condition that small m will slide on capital M, small m will not slide on capital M. Now I am taking one example. Say small m doesn't slide on capital M. Now when small m doesn't slide on capital M, both of them are moving together with a common acceleration. Implies small m and capital M are moving with a common acceleration. Yes or no?
Yes.
Now you ask an observer on capital N, work done by static friction on small m is equal to 0 as seen by an observer on capital M. But at the same time, work done by static friction on small m is non-zero as seen by an observer on ground. Somebody on the ground will tell you that this particular body is being pulled ahead by what force? Static friction. So there, with respect to ground, the point of application of the force has got displacement. But with respect to somebody here, the point of application of the force doesn't have any displacement. Is the logic clear to all?
Yes, sir.
You and I are sitting in a train. The train is accelerating. You are sitting in front of me. So according to me, you are at rest. So if you ask me what is the work done by static friction on you, I will say 0. But if you ask somebody on the ground, he will not say 0. He is seeing you accelerating in that direction because of static friction. It is the friction between the seat and you which is dragging you with that particular velocity. And hence he will report a net total work done. Hence work is frame dependent. Quick. Now listen to the statement of work energy theorem. The statement goes this way. Total work done will be equal to change in kinetic energy. Write the subheading work energy theorem. The statement is net total work done on a body should be equal to the change in kinetic energy of the body. Write down the statement. Net total work done on the body is always equal to the change in kinetic energy of the body. Now how do we further bifurcate this? Now total work done means there may be n number of forces acting on the body. There may be n number of forces acting on the body. Now all the forces are categorized into 3 slots. We write this as work done by conservative plus work done by non-conservative plus work done by external forces is change in kinetic energy. This is our work energy theorem. Work done by conservative plus work done by non-conservative plus work done by external is change in kinetic energy. NC means conservative, E means external. Work done by conservative plus work done by non-conservative plus work done by external force will be equal to the change in kinetic energy.
Yes, sir.
Now listen, you have written work energy theorem, you have shown us kinetic energy, but where did you conceal potential energy? Potential energy does not exist in the equation separately, it has been incorporated here. Work done by conservative is defined as the negative of potential energy stored in the body. Rather, potential energy is the negative of work done by the conservative forces. Potential energy is defined as the negative of work done by the conservative forces. So technically, you write conservative as minus delta PE. So when I substitute here, this will become work done by non-conservative plus work done by external will be delta KE plus delta PE. Now this is the change in kinetic energy plus this is the change in potential energy. The sum total kinetic plus potential energy, you call it total mechanical energy. Work done by non-conservative plus work done by external is total mechanical energy. Delta TME, don't forget this delta. Change in total mechanical energy. Change in total mechanical energy. That means this is total mechanical energy final minus total mechanical energy initial. total mechanical energy final. I would write work done by non-conservative plus work done by external. This would be kinetic energy plus potential energy final minus kinetic energy plus potential energy, both of them initial. Final kinetic energy minus initial kinetic energy. This is work done by non-conservative plus work done by external should be equal to change in kinetic energy. Kinetic energy final minus kinetic energy, for total mechanical energy final minus total mechanical energy initial. What is mechanical energy? Sum of kinetic energy and potential energy. And when can you conserve total mechanical energy? If work done by non-conservative plus work done by external forces is 0. Total mechanical energy is conserved. What do you mean by total mechanical energy being conserved? Total mechanical energy initial is equal to total mechanical energy final. Because delta TME will become 0 if this is equal to 0. So if delta TME is 0, total mechanical energy initial is equal to total mechanical energy final. What is this equal to? Kinetic energy initial plus potential energy initial is equal to kinetic energy final plus potential energy final. Now if I rearrange this, I can say potential energy initial minus potential energy final is equal to kinetic energy final minus kinetic energy initial. Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes, sir. Can I call this to be the loss in potential energy?
Yes, sir.
Why can I call it loss? Initial minus final. Can I call this to be the gain in kinetic energy?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
In your schooling, you have solved problems on where a ball is dropped from a height. The loss in potential energy is equal to gain in kinetic energy.
Yes, sir.
You have done this because it was consequence of conservation of total mechanical energy. Now when can you conserve that? When work done by non-conservative and external forces is 0. When you are dropping a body from certain height, you are not considering air friction into consideration. Now because you are not taking air friction into consideration, work done by non-conservative forces is 0 and there is no external force acting on the body.
Yes, sir.
When there is no external force acting on the body, the loss in potential energy can be taken as gain in kinetic energy. This I can write as loss in potential energy is equal to gain in kinetic energy, or even vice versa is equally possible. Sometimes a loss in kinetic energy will be gain in potential energy, more like a body projected vertically upwards.
Yes, sir.
Now we understood one parameter here. Net total work done will always be equal to the change in kinetic energy. Net total work done will always be equal to the change in kinetic energy. Can I have the board?
Yes, sir.
If a body is moving vertically upwards with uniform velocity, say I am pulling this body in the vertically upward direction with uniform velocity. When it is moving with uniform velocity, change in kinetic energy is 0. When I am holding this and I am moving this with uniform kinetic energy, the change in kinetic energy is 0. So the work done is 0. Which work done are you referring to? Total work done. Which work done are you referring to? Total work done. Then what is mgh and where is it coming from? We have solved problems where this is going up, the work done is mgh. But then the statement is like this: a body is moving up with uniform velocity. That means the force I should apply is F external should be equal to mg. This is gravitational force. When do you think it will move with uniform velocity? If the net total force on it has become 0. So force in upward direction should be equal to force in downward direction. What is the force in upward direction? mg. Now when this is moved up that way, I will write work done by conservative plus work done by non-conservative plus work done by external force is change in kinetic energy. You are telling me change in kinetic energy is 0 and there is no non-conservative force here. So work done by conservative force, how do I get that? If it has a displacement of h in the upward direction, you are moving it up. So conservative force is acting in the downward direction, displacement is in the upward direction. Work done is force dot displacement. So work done by conservative is mg dot displacement. Now work done by external force is again mg dot displacement. But there is a difference between these two. This will become minus mgs, this will become mgs. Why so? Here this is in the upward direction. I will put this as F external. F external and displacement are in the same direction. So it will become F external into displacement into cos 0. Here it will be cos 180. Cos 180 is minus 1. You ask me what is the net total work done? Answer is 0. Why? Change in kinetic energy is 0. But if you ask me what is the work done by the conservative force, it is minus mgh. Work done by the external force, it is plus mgh. Work done by the external force is plus mgh.
Yes.
And remember, in all such type of problems hereafter, whenever work done by non-conservative force is 0, whenever work done by non-conservative force is 0 and change in kinetic energy is 0. If non-conservative force is doing 0 work and the kinetic energy is not changing, it is moving with uniform velocity, under those circumstances, work done by conservative will be minus of work done by the external force. And you have already defined work done by conservative as minus delta U. I am writing potential energy as U. You already defined work done by conservative as minus of delta U. In this situation, you are getting work done by conservative as minus of work done by external force. Summarizing both, I will get work done by the external force is delta U.
Yes.
Now, this is what you are getting in this particular situation. Have a look at it. When I am pulling this body in the upward direction with uniform velocity, change in kinetic energy is 0. Non-conservative forces don't exist. So whatever is the work I am doing will be the work done by the external force. Yes or no?
Yes.
Now this work done by the external force done by me, generally we take it as the potential energy stored in the body. Why are you taking it as the potential energy stored in the body? This is the reason why you are taking that to be the potential energy. Work done by the external force, in this case you are getting as mgh. And when I pull a body in the upward direction, when I ask you the work done by me, you tell me mgh. Why is that mgh? Because that is the potential energy stored in the body. Why should that be the potential energy stored in the body? This is the reason. Is this clear to all?
Yes.
Yes.
Quick.